Hi everyone, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of our church. In 1956, very few of the buildings that you see around you were here. It was just 6 years after the flood, and members of the congregation of Broadway First Baptist Church were worried about the fact that there was no Baptist church presence and not a lot of Protestant presence of any kind in St. Vital. So they decided that some of the members of Broadway First would leave the church and found a church here. Now you see this field. This is now a small memorial park, but right beside me here, and I can't remember the exact placement, but in this field, the members of the church built a small wooden structure which was the first St. Vital Baptist Church. And when Christelle and I started attending the church in 1980, those people were all still there. So I got to hear lots about the building of this church and the camaraderie. They would all come after work. They worked through the winter from 6 o'clock to midnight, several nights a week, building this church. One of the members of the church, Dr. Bender Samuel, who was a local dentist, took on the task of being the first pastor of the church. And he did a fine job. He was supported by the members of the congregation who were all his friends as well. And this congregation was much more than a church family. It was a real family. And people would come over with coffee at night when they were building the church. They would help hammering. There was no electricity, so everything had to be done with hand saws and hammers and that type of thing. And the church was built right here. The church grew very well, and there are pictures around which I hope we could find of that building so full of little rickety chairs with smiling people on them. It was pretty impressive. In 1966, they decided that they had outgrown this spot. So they bought a corner lot on Bank Avenue and St. Anne's Road and decided to build another church. So let's go there. So this is the church that was built. They started in 1966 when the decision was made at the old church. And contracts and plans were drawn for this church, which is the new St. Vital Baptist Church. And St. Vital Baptist Church was definitely a congregational effort, exactly the way the other one was, although there were a lot more professionals involved because there's a concrete foundation and it did require a lot more effort. But the manpower put in by the entire congregation is still very evident here. And if you look right here, there's the cornerstone that was laid in 1967 to mark the opening of the church. And we have somewhere in our church a picture of a lot of smiling people because they managed through their own efforts and with help to plant this brand new church, which is still here. We don't own it anymore, but it's a very, very solid building. If you notice the three crosses that are on the front of our current building on Willowlake, they used to be attached to those pieces of metal up there. And the congregation felt that it was important to bring those with us as a memento, but also as a symbol of our continuing mission in a new place. So this church was a flourishing church and went through some very dry times afterwards because of squabbles inside the congregation. When the generation that built the church was getting a little bit older, there was a conflict between that generation and their children, and a lot of people left the church. I remember in 1981, we had an average attendance of 28. I used to sit in the choir loft and count the people each week, and that was pretty discouraging. But they brought in a secret weapon. If any of you see Nelson Geets at church, be sure to say thank you for the loan of his father. The Reverend Bill Geets moved to Winnipeg from Kenora as a retired pastor. Bill was already 68 at the time, and he took on the task of rebuilding this congregation. He did it with love and care and respect and prayer. And over the next 10 years, this building became too small for the congregation, and we had to move again. We did several things to try to address the lack of space in the church. Smaller chairs wasn't one of them. But if you look right here, look in that window, do you see a line of wood going across there? We decided that since there was a tall ceiling, we had to make use of that space. So we built a balcony inside the church that ran from the back up to here. Before that, the pastor's office was a kind of a broom closet in the far corner. You could get 2 chairs in it as long as nobody moved. That gave us a lot of extra space, and the pastor's office became just above there. There's a balcony, which was a Sunday school class, and then it was 2 Sunday school classes. Fortunately, the basement is very usable in this building, and that was used. When that became too small, we also did one more thing, which is a little bit ill-fated. Come this way a little bit. We bought that house, and that house was designed to be a larger place for the pastor to meet with people. When I was teaching the youth group and the high school Sunday school class, we used that building, but it was just not the right fit. The traveling back and forth made people not want to go over there, and it was the disconnectedness of it is what was part of the cause for us to need to look for a new place of worship.
In 1998, St. Vital Baptist Church purchased 45 Willowlake Crescent, formerly Southdale Alliance Church. This was a church ready to go, so no building projects were needed. So the church had a procession carrying the crosses from the side of the church from St. Anne's Road all the way to Willowlake Crescent, and the church was renamed Willowlake Baptist Church.
So there's your history.